Excelsior!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 13 of Excelsior. I'm your moderator, Christian Buckley, coming to you via the internet with Jack Martin.
Hello, via the internet. We are. You ever watch the that Timmy Turner episode? What was it? Fairly Odd Parents, where they go into a television and they channel
that's
surf?
a good one.
I imagine we're doing that, but via the internet. So good to be here.
I thought you were gonna mention iCarly.
What? Wait, what do they do? Oh, just like
just the nature of it.
I suppose. Freddie's not here though. So
no, and our Freddie, Pat Maroney, will be joining us the second half of the show while we review Spider-Man Blue. But before then, it's been a while, and we have a new game to start the show off. It's called Game of Plots.
all right,
It's the best I can think of.
Okay.
It's hard to top cast me, baby, one more time.
Yeah,
but,
that's true.
So what I'm going to do, I have the Wikipedia page for a Marvel video game pulled up. And I'm going to read it as long as you need me to read it before you can recognize what game this is.
Okay. I like this.
I will omit certain things that may be too obvious about it, but
Okay. Can I do like a 20 questions style ask like what year this came out kind of thing?
you can have one question at any point in time.
Okay.
But it can't be specifics. It can't be like, oh, who's the publisher or something like that.
Okay.
Okay. In an opening cutscene, Blank finds himself beset by his enemies from the films: Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, Sandman, and Venom. He gains help from Blank as he combats the villains. All 6 characters suddenly find themselves targeted by an enemy force, and one by one, the villains and New Goblin begin disappearing. Meanwhile, Blank is rescued by Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D., who informs him that the meteor which brought the Venom symbiote to Earth has broken up in the Earth's atmosphere, and 5 more pieces have landed in numerous locations across the globe. Fury sends Blank to retrieve the shards of the meteors. Blank quickly finds the villains who attacked him, and several more of his Blank, including Rhino and Scorpion, have been placed under mind control of a mysterious villain. The villain also creates and controls holographic/symbiote combination foot soldiers called Phantoms, which stands for Perpetual Holographic Avatar Nanotech Offensive Monsters. As Blank fights his Blanks one by one and rescues them from the mind control, they promise to aid him in finding the villain responsible. As Blank progresses, he obtains more allies, such as Blank, Iron Fist, Blank.
Okay.
Blank.
I think I can guess it.
Okay, what do you think?
Well, you said the word allies.
Yeah.
Is this Spider-Man friend or foe?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was like, this isn't like Web of Shadows or anything like
No.
that. Okay. Friend or foe? I never played that. I was thinking of, it was like, the cover is Spider-Man looking sideways, right? Like it's his profile.
Yeah, it's like Sam Raimi's suit looking Spider-Man, and he's swinging. It's a profile, and there's like Goblin and it's like some hero on there.
Okay. Yeah, hold on, I'm gonna look this up right now. Yeah, I never played this game. Oh, there it is. That is Sam Raimi Spider-Man, isn't it?
Right?
Has nothing to do with
nothing
the
at all,
universe,
no.
Though.
But
Okay.
like New Goblin looks like the James Franco New Goblin in that game.
Oh, all right.
It's strange.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I never beat it, but I owned it and I played it a little bit. Wasn't a huge fan, I don't think, but it's one of the many Spider-Man games, and I'm sure as the weeks goes on, if this segment continues, we're going to touch on many Spider-Man games.
There are several, and there's several random ones too. Like that is a very obscure one, I feel.
There are some really weird ones. I can't think of any, but that one, what a weird experiment.
Friend or foe? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, how you been? It's been a couple weeks, like I said.
Yeah, it's been a few weeks. I think my Endgame count right now is like 3 times. I think I've seen
Nice.
Endgame 3 times.
I've seen it twice. Still, I am going through the MCU with my girlfriend right now because we just wanted to do a marathon.
Yeah.
And I just watched Iron Man 3 last night, actually.
Ooh, a good one. The best
Very,
Iron Man,
very
I
good
would
one.
say.
Very good Iron Man movie. That was the first time she saw it.
Mm.
Wasn't a huge fan.
She wasn't. No.
No, she liked Iron Man 2 more, surprisingly.
I really like Iron Man too.
Yeah, I know you do. You think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I stan Iron Man too.
So, yeah, we have a few little news segments, Endgame news to kick the show off. There are some things that have happened between episode 12 and episode 13 that I've left out just because it's like, oh, yeah, they broke all these records, and then that record was broken again. So, Avengers Endgame is the fastest film to pass $2 billion at the worldwide box office. It only took 11 days. I think the former record was about a month to hit $2 billion. As of now, the spoiler embargo has lifted, so lots of behind-the-scenes footage from sneaky little celebrities like Chris Pratt, Chris Evans. Have you seen anything from the behind-the-scenes footage that stands out? Anything you like?
Yeah, so all those videos of like the actors who are told not to make videos obviously made videos because there were several like of the most famous people in Hollywood like just happened to be there on set. And I liked the original one that was posted by Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
And it was just like this panning of like all of the Avengers, and then at the very end, I'm pretty sure it's Sean Gunn who was like, "Yeah, I think I'm pretty much the most famous person here."
Yeah, that's
which
funny.
was really funny. I really like all those videos because like, I don't know, it's just a really cool insight into what was going on that
Yeah,
set.
and it's funny, like you said, like all of them were told no, but I'm surprised by how many people actually did take videos and pictures and stuff. Yeah, there's been some cool ones. There's been behind the scenes. It seems like a majority of them are from the third act battle, just because of the scale of what that set was like while they were shooting.
Yeah, and everyone just happened to be there at the same time.
Yeah.
You know.
I saw a real funny one that Sean Gunn posted of Fat Thor with like a bowl of guacamole on his stomach, and he was just laying back and he was scooping some up. It was funny.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. And as it stands right now, Endgame is currently, this is before the weekend, so by the time this episode comes out, may have passed Avatar, but currently it is at 2.53 billion at the worldwide box office, and Avatar is still sitting pretty at 2.78.
So only two away, huh?
About, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Do you think it's going to happen?
I think it could happen. I mean, if this movie is in theaters for a really long time, like you were mentioning this on an episode when we were like predicting if this will be like the highest grossing movie of all time. Avatar was in theaters from, I think you mentioned something like, I don't know, November, December until like June or something.
I think it was
ridiculous like
December
that.
to May, yeah.
Yeah, so if Avengers, I mean Avengers has done that in a few weeks, so if it's in theaters for like a month or two more, I think it definitely has a shot. I think it does have a shot, for sure.
Yeah, I was more hopeful about it around the second weekend. Now, I'm not too sure because, like, I feel like they might have lost some steam now. You know, we got, like, John Wick and Pokemon out there now.
That's true.
And, I mean, it's gonna take... like, X-Men will take box office away from this, even, like, if there's a disparity of quality there. It's a similar audience, so, like, I'm sure people will be like, oh, this weekend, instead of seeing Endgame the fourth time, I'll go see X-Men. So, I think that it's possible still. I don't think it's unlikely, but I'm less confident now than I was. But I think it still has a good shot.
I think so, too. I think we will see that happen. Just because this movie means more than something like Avatar does, I feel.
Yeah.
Just because it has that 22 film lineage. So I think it's very possible it'll happen. This movie will... We were talking about this. This is still going to be in theaters come Spider-Man, right? Like, do you imagine?
So.
Yeah, I think it will be. So.
And you have to imagine with the all the buzz, all the records, all the acclaim that Endgame has had so far, maybe they push for an Academy nomination, and if they do that, maybe it gets re-released.
Could be
'Cause
done.
most Oscar movies get re-released, and then by that point in time, it's been far enough away that it's like, oh hey, Endgame's back in theaters. I'll go see that again in IMAX. So that could give it a push too, because I know Avatar, like with multiple releases and like the director's cut and stuff like that, that helped it hit its current record.
Yeah.
So I think by next year, there may be a solid chance that it's number one.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think with all those combined, I think it definitely has a good shot. Yeah, I thought it was going to cross the number one movie of all time slot, and I still kind of believe that, so
Yeah.
here's hoping. I think it deserves it, for sure.
Yeah, I think it does too. Especially, like, it's crazy, like, seeing half of that top 10 list now. It's Marvel.
Oh, I
Which
know.
is insane.
Yeah.
And now Disney owns Hulu, too.
Oh, yeah, right. So,
Speaking of that, though, there was a story that I saw. I didn't think it was a huge deal, but it's worth bringing up. Hulu is now going to have a Ghost Rider show.
huh.
Spinning off from Ghost Rider that was introduced in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, I had no clue that was a thing.
It is, but it's not John. It's not Johnny Cage. What's his name? Johnny Cage is Mortal Kombat. Who's Nick Cage's character? Ghost Rider.
Oh, I don't even know his name. I honestly don't know that much about Ghost Rider.
I thought Ghost Rider was cool, like when I was younger and the movie was around. I never saw the movie, but I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. That's a cool superhero. Because I was like I was misguided.
Yeah,
But,
I'm not the biggest Ghost Rider guy, honestly.
So I guess the Ghost Rider that they did in Shield though, like people enjoy. I think it's Robbie Rodriguez or something like that,
Okay.
and he rides like a muscle car instead of a motorcycle,
Oh,
and different take on it.
okay.
But yeah,
Johnny
I feel
Blaze is the name of the guy.
like, of course it is.
Something with fire.
Yeah. So that's happening. No new updates on the Disney Plus series, except for something we're going to touch on a little later. But next news story, we opened the show with some Marvel games. We went into Endgame. It's time to talk about Game Informer. Game Informer, if you're unfamiliar, does a cover story every month where they focus on a specific video game. And this month's cover story is Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. Have you been following any of this coverage?
A little bit, not the Game Informer coverage, but a little bit of the game, yeah.
Yeah. I'm really excited for this. I've talked about it before. I played Ultimate Alliance, and that was like my first real big exposure into the greater MCU, greater Marvel universe outside of just like Spider-Man and X-Men. So that's where I learned about Iron Man and Doctor Strange and some. It's weird saying obscure characters, but at the time they were obscure.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah. So Ultimate Alliance 3 has a ton of new coverage coming out via Game Informer. There are over 24 characters that are going to be in the game.
Wow.
To select from. They have revealed 2 exclusive new announcements about the character lineup. One is Hawkeye, which was never shown off, surprisingly, so far. But he is in the game. And so is Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan.
Oh, cool.
So you get some variety in your power options. I don't think Mr. Fantastic or the Fantastic Four are in the game. But if you want stretchy big fists, you got Ms. Marvel now.
Hell yeah.
So,
Is that her powers? I have no clue what her powers are.
So yeah, I think she can like change like the mass of her body to like be stretchy and like have like big fists or like get super tall, stuff like that.
Okay. Very Reed Richards-esque.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with Ms. Marvel. I wanted to read a little more of her stuff because I feel like she's gonna start being a bigger player, especially with the MCU.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool seeing the lineup they've got so far. It's more diverse than I thought. Like the Inhumans are in there, the core Avengers, the Guardians, but pretty good selection so far.
Nice.
You've been sort of on the fence on this one, right?
Yeah, just like the way it looks, I don't know if it's for me particularly. Switch exclusive, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Always need some more Switch games, but yeah, I don't know, just the way it plays. I would prefer like a third-person action Marvel game, which I mean, supposed to have gotten with the Square Enix game, but we'll see about that if that ever sees the light of day. Like we haven't heard about that for quite a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a game for me that I need to like watch people play and see what people have to say about it, personally.
And it's rough because I'd recommend trying out Ultimate Alliance, like the original, but it's delisted now.
Really?
On digital storefronts, yeah, because the Activision license expired and they never. I don't know how legal works with that stuff, but it was delisted just because of the rights.
That really sucks. That's an example of video games being lost to history. Like people are so afraid of that, and like that's an example of it actually happening. So that kind of sucks.
But if you can find a copy of a disc and you have a way to play it, I recommend it because it is fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Something that I've been curious about though with that game is in the originals it was like big focus on alternate costumes, and again that's just more Marvel history being thrown into this game that's just rich with Marvel content. They haven't shown any of that stuff yet, so
really,
yeah, I'm curious because like Spider-Man, Spider-Gwen, and Miles, deservedly in the game, are all their separate characters. It's not just like, oh, here's the Miles skin. It's like, no, Miles has his own powers, his own attacks. He has electric-based stuff because of the shocking powers. And he can turn invisible versus, like, typical Spider-Man. And then Gwen has her own thing. So I wonder if they're going to get weird with costumes. Like, I'm not expecting Spider-Man PS4 level costumes, but, like, maybe a couple alts, maybe some MCU-inspired outfits.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
I always like messing around with those in games.
Yeah, so here's hoping. The game did get a little bit of info revealed about it when Nintendo posted it on the eShop finally. I did a video recap of that, which you can see on JoyClicks. But the good news is you can use the Pro Controller.
Ooh, there you go.
Yeah, so I know that's like really hit or miss sometimes with some Switch games. Like Mario Party, you can't use the Pro Controller, but like...
It's so weird to me.
Yeah, it's Nintendo. They'll do what they want.
Oh, well.
So... Speaking of doing what they want, Kevin Feige did an AMA, and he did what the people wanted.
Hell yeah.
He answered their burning hot questions, including what I would probably say is the biggest answer to come out of this, is about the uncontinued, unresolved thread of the Mandarin in the MCU.
Oh.
So, during his Reddit AMA, he was asked about the future of the MCU a million times, and specifically he was asked if the Ten Rings would return, if the real Mandarin that was teased in that Marvel one-shot with Ben Kingsley would return, would have a new presence somewhere, and he just said yes.
Oh, okay.
That was it. He just said yes, straight up.
What do you think this will be?
So I was thinking about it the other day, because again, I did watch Iron Man 3 last night.
Yeah.
So I was watching this movie about this international terrorist, and I was like, it's strange that Captain America is not involved here. I know the Mandarin is like an Iron Man villain traditionally.
Yeah.
But it's very strange that this guy that's like specifically attacking the president and the Iron Patriot and all that stuff, Captain America nowhere to be found. So, I think it might be more likely that, like, depending on how they tackle the Mandarin, like, if they go super mystical Mandarin, which is, like, what the comics is, maybe Doctor Strange, which I think could be cool, and maybe elevate Doctor Strange to that Iron Man Tony Stark role that you've been mentioning a couple times, because there's that connection already to Ben Kingsley's performance. But I think it'd be pretty cool if, like, terrorist Mandarin is the thing they still go with, and it's Sam Wilson's first mission is stopping the Mandarin as Captain America.
Oh, that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
In the Falcon Winter Soldier miniseries, you think?
Maybe there's like hints about what that's gonna be about, actually, which we'll touch on in a couple minutes.
Sure.
So yeah, Mandarin coming back. I forget. Did you like?
When I first saw Iron Man 3, I didn't like the twist.
Okay.
But now I really don't care, to be honest. I liked Ben Kingsley. I think he's really charming, especially towards the end, like when it's revealed. And him as like the Mandarin was awesome and is really terrifying. So that'd be really cool. I imagine when you said this, I think I could see something like a Ronin situation happening, where Ronin comes back in Captain Marvel as kind of like a lesser presence. I feel like he wouldn't have this immense on-screen persona as he did in Iron Man 3 in his next outing. So I can see, like, again, like a Ronin, kind of smaller. He's there. Maybe it's in the past at some point, and they go back, and they show the Mandarin. So something like that, I could see.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious to see what they do with an Iron Man villain with no foreseeable Iron Man films.
Right.
So
perhaps his daughter, Morgan.
Maybe.
We'll see.
We will see. There are a few other little fun tidbits that came out of that AMA. One of these, speaking of Cap, is that Feige knows about that question that I had about the Winter Soldier parentage, Peggy Carter children family thing. So he was asked, "Hey, was Steve her husband the whole time?" And she was just playing it cool, which is what I thought it might have been.
Yeah.
And he just said, "I know the answer."
He didn't give the
answer, but he knows. He knows, like, if it was Steve or not, or if, like, Steve replaced that guy when he went back in time.
Well, that's easy to say rather than explain. Do you think... didn't someone say it? Like, didn't the Russo brothers say it?
The Russo brothers have been saying a lot of things.
Oh.
I've seen a lot of comparisons to J.K. Rowling.
Really?
On Twitter, yeah.
Huh.
Some people aren't happy. I think they're trying to needlessly cover plot holes and scrambling, but I think the movie covered the bases with the way time travel works, because nobody really gets it. So I think that was their way of, like, they should have just left it there of, like, hey, don't know the answer, like, try and find it yourself. But they've been giving a lot of definitive answers on things that some people were like, oh, I didn't interpret it this way, or that's not at all what you presented, like, stuff like that.
Okay.
So
I don't know. That was, like, the thing that kind of took me out of it, was not understanding how Cap got there, because, like, didn't really make sense in the reality that they constructed with time travel.
Yeah.
So I could see him always being there, but that also wouldn't make sense, I guess, in a way. And I've heard a lot of people say that he's always been there, and he continues going into the future, and then instead of, like, crossing into two different timelines, he just travels back in time to that point. So I could see it.
Yeah, it's confusing, and there's another story that we're going to touch on that makes me even more confused about all of this. But a couple other highlights from the AMA. He revealed that Mark Ruffalo has had a big hand on the character arc of the Hulk throughout all of his appearances the past few years, Avengers, Ragnarok. So that's cool to find out. I'm glad Mark Ruffalo enjoys that character.
Yeah, me too. And he seems to be enjoying it more and more, especially after Ragnarok, which is funny because Chris Hemsworth is the same way. I think he was kind of getting stale on the character of Thor, and then Taika Waititi kind of, like, revitalized that character, and now he's, like, really excited to play him.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that they had that experience, because for a while I've always been saying that, like, post Endgame I just want Thor and Hulk to be, like, the ones that keep going on, because I feel like their job isn't super hard or intense on the actors, you know? Like, Thor can just, or, like, Chris Hemsworth can just have a good time on screen. Like, Robert Downey Jr. is, like, really has, like, he has to carry all of his movies pretty much.
Yeah, he's holding it down, for sure.
And Chris Evans has grand ambition for things he wants to do, so, like, I understand that, but, like, Chris Hemsworth, the movies he's in, like, he just seems like he's having fun. Mark Ruffalo, I don't know if Mark Ruffalo has been in other movies recently. Like I
I
know
can,
he's very active.
yeah.
For like charity and fundraising and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as acting goes, I can't think of the last time I saw him in something that wasn't Marvel.
The only thing I can think of is Zodiac, and that was like a decade ago.
Right, yeah.
And he was in that with Robert Downey Jr. Pretty sure.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. Good to hear. Feige also commented on Disney Plus. He was asked several times if they would get, not outright being phrased like this, but if they'd get the same treatment as like the Netflix or Shield shows, because it's like, oh, these exist, but like, do they matter? And he said that the Disney Plus series are going to be heavily integrated into the progression of the films and vice versa.
Cool.
Which I feel like they've said before, but he's just reiterating. So that's interesting to see, because there's some speculation and rumors. Moving on to this next story about Disney Plus, there's a sheet of info that came out about a pretty big lineup of Marvel content over the next couple of years, with details about the plots, details about like the general direction of things. And I don't know how much of this I necessarily buy, because it's like a full synopsis for each project between now and like 2024 maybe. So one of the things on there I just thought I'd mention, because we were talking about it earlier, the Captain America, or sorry, the Winter Soldier and Falcon show is going to be supposedly about the government not approving of Steve being the one to make the decision about who gets to be Captain America now. So they interfere. They're like, hey, no, he's senile or whatever. And then it's about Sam and Bucky trying to like hunt this rogue agent or something. Captain America, the new Captain America, is out there doing whatever. And then plot twist, he turns out to be a crappy guy. And then it's like, oh, Sam earns being Captain America.
Cool. I actually like that a lot.
Explaining it after I didn't think of this when I was reading that synopsis, but explaining it. Remember there were those rumors about John Cena being the next Captain America?
Yeah.
I'd love it if he was the guy they brought in, and they're like, no, this is who the new Captain America is.
Oh, that'd be awesome. And that would make sense too, because like I would imagine like the government wanting someone with the image, not necessarily the heart.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think John Cena is like the perfect kind of look for what I guess like the government in that world would kind of want Captain America to look like, and I think that'd be pretty cool.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, John Cena is just fun. Like he has fun in a lot of the roles he's in. I remember on Psych he played this like elite agent that was kind of like Captain America, but less less spangly.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
I feel like hypothetically, if this rumored scenario is real, I feel like John Cena could do that and it would be fun.
Yeah.
There were a lot of other things on there too about like the Guardians plot. It was like, oh, Rocket finds a love interest. It was weird stuff like that. It was like really weird, specific things. So I don't know how much I buy it, but it's out there if you are curious about what else it contains.
Cool.
But it's time to get into one of the big boy news stories. Spider-Man: Far From Home got a trailer.
Oh, it sure did.
Which I did not watch.
I didn't either.
But
I thought you watched it. Okay.
No, I didn't watch it, but I found out about the thing.
Right. I did too, through internet memes. That's how I found out.
I saw a lot of screenshots too.
Yeah, I did too.
So like there was one that I really didn't want to see, and there were things that were making me nervous, but like I'd rather I talked to people about it and I was like, oh, I'm kind of worried about them leaning into the Peter has to be Tony again. Because I thought we moved on from that, but like people have said, oh no, that's not what they're doing for it. So the big takeaway from this trailer, multiverses.
Yes.
Or a multiverse within Marvel.
The
implications of this, I don't even know where to begin.
I know.
It's insane to think of. Like Spider-Verse, I think, pulled it off incredibly well.
Right.
But that's Spider-Verse's thing, you know? Like, Spider-Verse from the get-go was like, hey, this is centered on the story of Miles Morales. This is a different take on Spider-Man that not a lot of people are familiar with.
Mhm.
So the core of that movie and the heart of that movie is Miles, and that was amazing. On top of that, they were like, so the situation he's in is having to deal with the fact that he's not the only Spider-Man. So it worked on a bunch of different levels.
Right.
Here, I feel like it's going to be hard to introduce that, but like I feel like it might not be, because like there's this history here now, but does that mean that Robert Downey Jr. can show up again as a different universe as Tony Stark, and like is that going to betray the emotions of how we feel now about seeing him on screen as that character?
Yeah,
it's tricky.
It is, and a large part of me thinks like it's not true.
Yeah.
I don't know like how they introduced it. I heard maybe like someone said that Mysterio says like, "Oh, I'm from a different Earth." I think it's very possible that he's lying. I think it's very possible that the multiverse doesn't exist, and I would honestly kind of prefer that it doesn't, because I think it offers more of an opportunity to mess things up and confuse audiences. So don't really want that. But if they do, it would also let them be able to add things easier, specifically X-Men.
Yeah.
Kind of introduce that pretty, easily as they can, and Fantastic Four, things like that. But honestly, I just hope that they don't mess with the multiverse in the MCU.
Yeah, I really don't know, because I feel like that's just so tied to comics as something that works and nobody questions it. And who am I to question Kevin Feige and Marvel after they made Guardians work, they made Doctor Strange work, they made Endgame work? So, like, I don't think it's not possible. I just don't know if it's a direction that I'm super excited about right now.
Yeah, same.
I'll have to see how it goes, and I'm kind of with you on I don't know how much I buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Because Mysterio's whole thing is about illusion and misdirection, so like maybe that's part of it.
And Marvel too, just the trailers.
Exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll see how that turns out, I guess.
I'm really excited for that. I watched Civil War last night, and I was like, wow, I really want to watch Spider-Man Homecoming after this.
Yeah.
Definitely going to rewatch that before Far From Home.
Yeah, good decision.
Mm-hmm.
There's one last Spider-Man Far From Home thing I want to touch on. Apparently, this also comes from the AMA. Spider-Man Far From Home is the end of Phase 3.
Yes.
I thought it was the start of Phase 4.
That's what a lot of people thought. And I'm pretty sure they said that at one point or another.
I swear they did.
Yeah, I think they did. And it kind of makes no sense.
It really doesn't. Well, I mean, like, I get if it's like, if a lot of the movie is dealing with everything that happened.
That's true. Like the aftermath of Endgame, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, if it's that approach for the majority of the movie as sort of like an epilogue more than like a new chapter, like, I could see that, but it's weird. Like, why? Because again, if you think of it, like, odds are, because of the shooting schedule, the next Marvel movie is going to be Black Widow.
Yeah, and I hope so.
And it's most likely coming out February, March of next year.
Mm-hmm.
And based on what we know right now, also odds are it's a prequel. So I feel like it would be weird to start a new phase with a prequel.
Right.
Like, why not start a new phase the way they did with Iron Man 3? Like, the biggest character we can possibly make a film for right now, Spider-Man. Start the new phase with him. Instead of being like, starting Phase 4 of Black Widow, but like, this is just context about her. It's more of like a side contextual thing. It's like, and I don't think that a Black Widow film couldn't start a phase. Like, I would love to see a Black Widow film start the phase, and I'm excited for that movie, but I think the nature of it being a prequel is strange to be like, fresh start, you know?
Yeah, it's weird. I feel like Far From Home isn't in the Infinity Saga, which is
it really isn't.
from Iron Man 1 to Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird how it's still lumped in that phase at the end. I mean, I guess it does make sense. Like, it is dealing directly with Endgame in a way that Ant-Man and the Wasp didn't really necessarily deal with Infinity War. Like, it wasn't weird to have that back like immediately after. So yeah, it's a little strange. I think it's all semantics. I don't know if it really like matters necessarily, but it is a little strange that this is the end of Phase 3, arguably the best phase in the MCU. Personally, that's what I think.
Really solid. So yeah, that wraps up the MCU Marvel gaming news. I do have one quick little note about a comic story that may be featured on the show later in the summer. The X-Men. The entire X-Men comics, I think it's 17 books, like 17 specific series that are ongoing right now, all got canceled.
Whoa.
All of them. Every single X-Men comic. Chopped, axed, over.
Why?
Because, remember last summer I told you Marvel did a fresh start initiative? Where it's like, new number ones for our biggest characters. It's still the continuity of these lines. Like Amazing Spider-Man is still like whatever number that's in, like multiple hundreds. But like, here's a fresh number one. It's like easy approach. And they did that for numerous characters, and they brought X-Men back, like, fully last fall. Already canceled, though, because the quality of the X-Men books and the amount of X-Men books, and I guess the sales, aren't doing super hot for them.
I see.
And maybe this also has to do with the fact that they acquired Fox now, and they have that confirmation of, like, hey, X-Men's in our future. They want to reestablish a nice jumping-on point with some of the best X-Men writers.
Yeah.
Which, oddly, were writing some of the stories that are going on in those canceled books right now. So, X-Men is being canceled. It's relaunching in July as 2 miniseries, both written by Jonathan Hickman. It's called House of X and Power of X. Both of these short series, I don't know how long they're lasting, but there will be an issue every other week, and since it's 2 books, they're staggered, so that way you have a new X-Men story being continued every single week starting in July. And one of these books is supposed to cover like the history of the X-Men and like their legacy, and the other book is supposed to reestablish the X-Men like for a modern age. And both of these books are being positioned to sort of get people like us who are new to reading comics or are interested in the X-Men and want a new place to hop on, or are looking for a way to read comics in continuity as they release. And the writer they have, Jonathan Hickman, very well regarded. He's written tons of great stories from the research I've done about this topic so far. And he is notoriously similar to Kevin Feige about the way he tells his stories. Like, he plans way far ahead, so like you're not really sure what's going on until a certain point where it all clicks. So that's the future of the X-Men right now.
Interesting.
Does that sound appealing to you at all?
I've never read an X-Men comic, so I would be down.
Yeah.
Definitely down to read.
I tried X-Men Blue a couple summers ago now, and I liked it, but it wasn't. So it was like there was a clear like I'm jumping in the middle of things, because it was like, oh yeah, we have the OG X-Men team here, but a couple of them are from 2015 and a couple of them are from the 60s. So it was really weird, and it's like there's this weird wall with the X-Men that they seem to be breaking down. So
was that X-Men Blue written by Jeff Loeb, same guy?
No.
Okay.
It was X-Men Blue and X-Men Gold. Blue was supposed to be the based on the original team, and then Gold was based on the iconic team, like Wolverine, Cyclops, all them.
Cool.
So, a little comic teaser as we're about to hop into our review of Spider-Man Blue. Very good comic, in my opinion. And we will be back after a short break with Pat Maroney.
Wait a minute. You guys aren't the real Avengers.
Welcome back to the show. We are now joined by Pat Maroney, now on your TV screens.
Yeah, or probably computer screens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry if my setting's lame. I'm in the process of moving.
oh, that's exciting. That's always exciting.
It's the worst. It's, putting everything you own into a box is so tough.
Yeah. If you had the Infinity Gauntlet right now, would you just use it to move out?
Yeah. All I need is the space stone. Because I'm like realizing now, like you know how like usually you throw stuff out that like you don't use anymore when you're moving.
Hmm.
I'm just finding trash. Like there's
Nice.
just trash all over my room that like I just put behind like the pop figure Jack got us. Like there's like 2 water bottles behind it.
Well, there you
Yeah.
go. You know what's not trash?
Spider-Man Blue.
Spider-Man Blue.
I liked it a lot.
You did.
Yeah, I was a big fan.
Jack, what do you think?
I loved it. Yeah, that was my first Spider-Man comic I've ever read. So
Nice.
it's
And
a good one to start with.
Pat, I know you're familiar with comics from DC, but you don't have a huge Marvel Comics history, right?
Yeah, I never dove fully into the Marvel kind of comic universe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely going to now that I have this Comixology subscription.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm excited to see more.
Yeah. So, Jack, I know you're a big Spider-Man fan.
Yes, huge Spider-Man fan.
Yes. So, do you think this was a good pick to be introduced to Spider-Man comics and comics in general?
Yeah, I think so. I think you don't really need to know what's going on
Mm-hmm.
with the background of this comic. I know I watched your video finally, Christian,
Thank you.
about Spider-Man Blue,
Mhm.
and you were mentioning that this was kind of like a sequel to the death of Gwen Stacy in a way.
Yeah, it's like it's dealing with it super far after the fact.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that, but it came out in the early 2000s. I think
Really?
2002. Yeah, 2002 I think is when it started.
What's
And
like
it's-
the sorry to cut you off, but what's like the setting for the actual like history of the comic? Because I've noticed a lot of it's kind of like in Peter's younger days, he's like driving a motorcycle that resembles like a motorcycle from like the 70s.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I love this book so much, because the art style it pulls from a lot of different eras of Spider-Man. Like, it's got the web armpits, and the suit itself is very basic and looks a lot like the original Amazing Fantasy cover. The fashion, like everybody's wearing like Letterman jackets and like really strange dresses and jewelry. The dialogue too, like MJ calls Peter like PD, PDO,
Yeah.
like catch you later, Jazzy Slice, stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I like about it a lot. It's like it's very it plays with like what you know about Spider-Man. Like Jack said, it's not beholden to a specific arc. It's like, hey, you know Peter Parker, you know Mary Jane, you know Gwen Stacy died, you know the villains, and you know Osborn. So it plays with that a lot, and I think a lot of it too. The first time I read it, this was one of the first comics I read. It plays a lot with the knowledge that people would walk away from the Sam Raimi films with.
Okay. Yeah, it does.
Mhm.
I agree.
Like, that entire sequence about Harry and his dad and the apartment is, like, very similar to that whole sequence of Spider-Man 1, where they move in together, Norman's paying for it, and that whole thing.
Yeah, it is very much like kind of set in that. It's not set in that universe, but it makes sense to walk away from those movies and pick this up.
Mm-hmm. And I do think the whole, like, what you guys brought up about the setting and not knowing when it's really set works because it's such a modern way to tell a story, but it does play with the history of the character a lot, which I really like about it.
Yeah, it's kind of this fresh look at Peter Parker. Like, yeah, within like other like outlets of Spider-Man, you get his narration or you get like his thoughts in the moment, but it goes so much deeper than just like those quirky one-liners.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he's punching Rhino in the face or something. Like it's not like he's just like, oh, kablamo, go back to the Sahara or something. Like it's really it's a lot more like personal, like relatable on a certain level.
Definitely.
Who did you guys read Spider-Man's voice in?
Yuri Lowenthal.
I did too. from
Yeah.
Spider-Man PS4.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Pat?
I honestly can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was along the lines of Tobey Maguire. It was like Tobey Maguire-ish.
I
Yeah.
got that at some points too.
Yeah. I definitely know who I read J. Jonah Jameson.
Jameson, yeah.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, you gotta.
He's perfect for that role.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
he's so good. But yeah, I think, like we both brought up, the characterization of Spider-Man, it's really emotional, it's very powerful, just like Yuri's performance, and it is a meshing of a lot of different Spider-Man styles.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you guys think about the art? Like the choice specifically I want to talk about is the modern day stuff that's just all in blue.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
the,
you mentioned that in your video.
Yeah.
Where you were saying that, like, usually stuff like that, like, is in the past. Like, so if we would see all these panels in blue, that would signify the past. But the past, like you were saying, is all colored.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when Gwen was alive, and that's what the whole point of the book is about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love how simple it is too. The
Yeah.
art style is just real great.
It seemed like when it wasn't that sort of blue style,
Mhm.
which also like I love that like ramification of like he's definitely feeling a lot more than blue, but like it seems like the color represents something there. But
Mhm.
also like the older style was like it was like very like Batman and Robin, Andy Warhol-ish. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
But yeah, it was cool.
So the story of Spider-Man Blue starts out in modern day on Valentine's Day, with Peter mourning Gwen Stacy's death on the not on the anniversary, just on Valentine's Day. Really great art, really great introduction to this version of Spider-Man and Peter. Then the flashbacks, and the story is broken up into 6 issues. Each issue deals with Peter and either Gwen or MJ, and then a supervillain. So the yeah,
Essentially
yeah,
a Sinister Six,
which is a nice nod.
issue.
Yeah. But yeah, the format of it all, the format of reading it through issues. Did you guys read it all at once, or did you break it up?
Yeah, I blitzed it as well.
I read it all at once.
Yeah, I did too. Just because I do think it's a quick read. Like it really isn't that long. It took me about an hour to read through it.
And like
Same.
I feel like it just like I wouldn't want to take a break in between.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like it's just perfectly. I don't get how people got it in subscriptions because that must have just been like. To me, it'd feel like I'd have to read the last 10 pages of the previous one just to have it kind of roll over.
Yeah, and it's 6 issues, and the 6 issues came out pretty much over the span of a year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there was a wait in between issues, and a couple weeks ago I brought up Spider-Man Life Story.
Yeah.
Which is each issue is a decade of Spider-Man's life in real time. They're only on issue 3 right now of the 80s, so I haven't picked up the 70s or 80s yet, because I kind of just want to wait to like read it all at once.
Yeah, I feel like that's the way to go.
Because with a miniseries like this, I feel like it's so focused that reading it piecemeal wouldn't really like convey it super well unless I was rereading each time an issue came out.
Yeah, yeah. It's also like, well, the way you said it's coming out yearly now, that kind of makes or not like 6 over a year. Or I thought it was 7. I thought it was 7.
No, 6 issues over a year.
6 issues. Well, like I feel like since there's that much time, it might kind of work reading it based on the come out date because you have so much time to like re-up on that second one. I was thinking like they came out in the span of like a week or something.
Oh no, yeah, no.
Which now that you say that makes sense for the turnaround. But yeah, definitely blitzing it's just the way to go.
Yeah, there's a lot of to be continueds in this too, so that would be tough to wait like I don't know months.
It didn't read like a
see
TV
that.
show; it read like a movie.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison.
Yeah.
Because even with the way it's framed of like each issue is a tape of Peter recording and telling over his story to whoever he's talking to, I think you're right where it's like a natural flow that just works so well in one sit down.
Yeah.
And over the next couple weeks, we're probably going to touch on a couple either like ongoing comics that only have a couple issues in right now, to see. So I'm interested to see what we feel about the just the structure in general, about how comics work with having that period of waiting, sometimes for multiple months, sometimes for just a couple weeks. So curious to see how that goes.
We will.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any standout moments that you liked a lot from the book?
I'll let Jack go first because I want to think about this.
Yeah, I was gonna think about it too, but honestly, I think the most beautiful panel is Gwen and Peter kissing on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
I think that's signed at the bottom by the artist who did that because I think it's just so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, that's like image-wise, that stuck out to me.
Yeah.
And I really like the end scene, just like story-wise.
Yeah, and I want to dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, it shows like just a totally different MJ, because when I was reading through this, I did not like MJ at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you find out, like even before this, like that Peter marries MJ, I'm like, well, I kind of hate MJ, so I don't really like that. But at the end, like you clearly tell that these two characters are like radically different than they were
Absolutely
in the past. So I don't know. I like how that was kind of told.
Mm-hmm.
That's also what I'd like. Like you said, I mainly like standout moments for me. Like we've all seen that like infamous line, like "Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot," come up in like probably every animated series I've watched of Spider-Man at least once.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, I was just like, who does she think she is? Like, who are you to just walk up to the door and say that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the entire time, she was like, she just reminded me of someone I hate. Not like a specific person, but like if I was like in a situation where like, a girl's like, oh, like I just rode on the back of your motorcycle, and hey, you see that crime scene? Why don't I just flirt with the cop so we can get closer to it? I'd be like, no, like that's not how this should be working out. Like,
I think MJ's characterization in this, it's interesting because it leans into the tropes of her character of being just like, oh, I'm the party girl, I'm crazy, ooh, and then there's that weird connection between her and Peter. But I think having that framed, or at least with the bookend of MJ in modern day, is interesting because it's weird because the time setting of everything, the way they act, the way they dress, it's dated and it feels out of place with how modern the method of the storytelling is, you know?
Yeah.
Because like there's some stuff that like Peter even says about MJ and Gwen that I'm like, ooh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Like there's some weird stuff about like, I think there was that panel when he was like swinging by the apartment and he's like, I mean, hey, you know what two girls dancing does to a guy? I'm like, Peter, really? Okay. But then you get that next to like Flash and MJ talking like really weird slang to each other at the diner, so it's like I think it's leaning into that aspect of it, you know?
Yeah.
Just to like just show how juvenile a lot of it is because they are still kids pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. There are definitely standout moments like that for me personally, but I think it's done on purpose.
Right. Yeah.
Like also like with every character there's in that book there's a person that like you can relate to that, you know what I mean?
Mm.
It's fiction. Spider-Man's definitely not real. But like you look at like Mary Jane and you're like, that's not even a person.
Mm-hmm.
Is a person. That's someone who like likes would their life's complete if they get 50,000 followers on Instagram. So I take my argument back. She's the worst though. She's the worst.
Yeah, honestly, I just didn't like how the female characters were written in this. It's very
even
like
Gwen.
comic booky.
Yeah.
Not even Gwen, yeah. I just like didn't feel for either of them.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the emotional impact that the book has is the way Peter talks about Gwen.
Yeah.
More so than the way Gwen acts, because Gwen really isn't in this book a lot. It's like it's all framed around her, but she doesn't have much to say or do in this, and they didn't touch on the death. Did you guys think they were going to touch on the actual death?
I thought it was leading up to them showing the death, but yeah.
Because I was pretty sure it ended up like being Peter who Spider-Man accidentally kills Gwen, right?
Yeah, I think it's like, I don't know the specifics of it, but I know Goblin throws her off, but I think she was already dead at that point, and then he catches her. Or
I thought like he caught her with the web, and then like
the whiplash.
Yeah, the whiplash like broke her neck or something.
I forget. I haven't actually read the night Gwen Stacy died. I just know about it, and I know how Amazing Spider-Man did it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
yeah, I like that they didn't do the death, personally, because I think it was like a different way to tell that story, you know, just from the perspective of an older, depressed Peter.
Yeah, and he wasn't focusing on her death necessarily. He was focusing on like the times that they had together.
Yeah.
Like it would have, if he focused on her death, it would not have been on Valentine's Day that he came, because Valentine's Day was the day they like became a thing, became a couple. So
right.
I think it made sense that they didn't show it, and I'm kind of glad that they didn't, even though I was expecting they would, but I'm kind of glad that they didn't, like what you're saying, Christian.
Yeah. There's one point of discussion that always comes up with this book, and it's about the end. About Mary Jane walking in and just seeing what's going on. And a lot of people are like, would she really be okay with that? Like, what did you guys think about how she acts at the end?
I think that's totally fine. I think any reasonable human being would be totally fine with what Peter was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, someone died, you know.
I think the point that gets it weird is that, like, the way he talks about MJ in the tape is, like, it seems like he's not happy with his marriage, and then the fact that, again, timeline is really weird here because we don't know how far in the future this is. MJ and Peter both look significantly older.
Yeah.
I think that shot of Peter, I think the only shot of modern Peter, or the first shot of modern Peter, he just looks, like, really worn out, really, like, skinny and unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it like, it's weird because it's like I think some people interpret it like, oh, this is like 20-ish years and he still hasn't moved on. But personally, I don't think it's a problem. Like, I think the way that MJ like handles the situation makes sense with Peter talking about like Gwen's death made her grow up. Like, I feel like that fit fine, and the fact that it's Peter dealing with this, like, character-defining trauma, I feel like that makes it okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I also think it's worth mentioning that, like, hypothetically, obviously speaking, it's been some time since Gwen's death, and also, like, they were a friend group, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. MJ definitely feels for Gwen as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. They kind of had their little, like, cat battle thing going on at one point. But I just think, like, you know, she could have been seeing Harry for all we know when Peter was seeing Gwen.
Yeah, and that's what the book sets up, at least. Like,
yeah,
there's times where it's like, oh yeah, she has a date with Harry, or like Harry asking Peter if it's okay to go with MJ, stuff like that, which again was touched on in the Sam Raimi movies. So like, there's a lot of Spider-Man history in this book, and I feel like that's one of the reasons I thought it was a good jumping on point.
Did that MJ scene, or did that scene where Harry was asking if he could ask MJ out, did that happen right after he asked him to
move in with him?
Yeah.
Classic bait and switch.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow, yeah. I didn't even think of it that way.
Yeah.
But,
Christian, would you say this is your favorite Spider-Man graphic novel or comic series?
Probably my favorite Spider-Man graphic novel that I've read, because I haven't read many, especially not many like really separate, unique sort of side story things like this.
Mm-hmm.
I've read a handful of Amazing Spider-Man and Ultimate Spider-Man, but never any like contained graphic novel Spider-Man books besides this one.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to, and I think Life Story is going to be a natural follow-up for something like this.
Right.
With the way it tells that story. But what do you guys think about Flash Thompson?
So isn't Flash supposed to go on to be Venom at some point or another?
Like the military Venom, I think, something like that.
Military Venom, okay.
It was Eddie Brock.
There's like a couple versions of Venom.
Yeah.
One of them's like a government agent that was trying to be like recreate the Captain America thing, and they use the symbiote. But yeah, did you guys know that Flash is like inspired by Spider-Man? Have you ever seen something like that?
The only time I thought of that was, or saw that was from Homecoming.
Same.
Yeah.
Spider-Man Homecoming. So this was cool to see it in comics.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was cool how like he kind of had that redemption moment at the end.
Yeah.
He like was like, "Oh, Pete, you're all right," and there's that frame where they're shaking hands. The next thing you know, they're throwing a huge party for him because he's in the military. Which also made me wonder what time this took place in, because that military uniform looked kind of like
60s, 70s ish.
Yeah, looked like Vietnam-ish.
I mean, they deal with the same moment of Peter and Flash's relationship in Life Story, where takes place during Vietnam, and Flash is like, "Hey, I'm going over." So, yeah, I think it's interesting when you think of like Flash and MJ and where they start out with Peter in this book as sort of like hesitant or negative relationships, and then like Harry and Gwen are both kind of positive relationships.
Yeah.
And by the end, it's kind of like a weird switch, because like towards the end of the book, he's not super like chummy with Harry. You know, there's like, I think once he moves in, there's that weird switch between him and Harry's relationship. And then with Flash, he like has that moment with him as Spider-Man, and then he has that moment with him as Peter, which I think I liked a lot. That's one of my favorite moments, is when he saves Flash.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and that like makes him question what he wants to do.
Yeah.
In life. Yeah, I really like that.
I thought Flash was gonna take that money back. I thought he was gonna take it and do something with it. I was like, oh, that's not a good thing for character development. Then it ended up,
Yeah, I think the book has a lot of really great Spider-Man moments, but I like how it's all framed about him having all these doubts and being like, I really want to be selfish right now, but I can't. So I think it's a nice look at a different version, or like a different face of Peter and Spider-Man that isn't really shown often. So that's why I like it a lot.
For sure.
I guess my question: what happened to Osborn?
I mean, in the context of the comics, he comes back and he's like, "Oh, I'm Goblin again," and that's why Gwen dies.
Okay.
So, but again, similar to the reason why they didn't show the death, I'm glad they didn't do that either, because like, it was kind of just set dressing. Same with all the villains. It was just like, hey, it's a Spider-Man comic, we should probably have a fight in here, so that's why he's fighting Rhino and Kraven and all these people.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Pat. Well, I was gonna say, like, in a way, this like furthers Peter's guilt, because he essentially, by not killing Harry Osborn in the beginning, or Norman Osborn in the beginning, he allows for him to return and essentially kill Gwen Stacy. So,
and that's mentioned in his like little blue text dialogue.
Yeah,
I feel like that's kind of a reoccurring theme in this too, is the fact that they have like former villains returning back to grace, falling from grace and then coming back. Like we saw that with the Lizard. I forget the doctor's name.
Kirk Connors.
Yeah. Well, he was the scientist, and then he's the Lizard again, and the family comes back, and right before the family walks into the little laboratory, he's Kirk Connors again.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that, because like Rhino is introduced in prison like unconscious, then he is like full blown Rhino, and then he gets it stripped away from him.
Yeah, and then also like wasn't his whole primary goal? Well, at least in the Spider-Man game that I've seen, his whole goal is to basically get his suit off, right?
I think Scorpion is really like, I want this suit off of me. Rhino, I think, like, loves it because it gives him the power and like the glory and stuff. It's interesting though.
Yeah.
So yeah, any final thoughts? Anything that we haven't touched on that either of you want to talk about?
I'm glad how short it was, and I really did enjoy the narration style of how he's like leaving these messages. And I definitely want to jump into more Spider-Man comics. I feel like there aren't as many well-known like graphic novels for Spider-Man as there are for characters like Batman. Because I can name like 10 Batman graphic novels off the top of my head if I wanted to right now, but I don't think I could say the same for Spider-Man. So I got to do some digging, I guess.
Yeah.
I think some of it comes down to the fact that Marvel has had their ongoing continuity for so long, and with DC, it's like lots of restart events that is like a full restart and lots of side stories like Batman Year One, Dark Knight Returns, Earth One. Those are all separate existences, I think.
Okay.
But Spider-Man is like, hey, yeah, that time I had a clone, that was real. That was like 30 issues ago, and now I'm divorcing MJ. Now I'm a billionaire. Like, that's all still one continuity.
Yeah.
So there are some side stories like this, like Life Story. I own Kraven's Last Hunt, but I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, no, this is the first time I ever saw Kraven in anything, I'm pretty sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Kraven was introduced in a couple of the games. That's how I knew him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Kraven's an interesting character, and Kraven's Last Hunt I know is acclaimed as like one of the better Spider-Man stories, and it deals like the symbiote and a lot of stuff like that.
Right.
His costume's dumb though.
He has Tarzan costume.
Yeah, he looks like a divorced Hollywood Hills mother, like out on the town.
Yeah.
There was one other one I want to shout out. I know people like Absolute Carnage,
Oh, okay.
and I'm not sure how in depth that is, but I know that is like a darker Spider-Man story.
Mm-hmm.
I heard there was this great one. I forget what it was called. I literally read it a couple days ago. It was like just the whole. It involved like parallel universes and stuff, so it got complicated at times.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point of it is like one of those like just enjoy the story, don't like get caught up on the universe.
Yeah.
That surrounds it. But it was basically every Avenger in symbiote form was thrown into one universe to try to stop this like global symbiote takeover, I guess.
Huh. Wow.
Interesting.
Really cool. But yeah.
That is cool, yeah. So, I think that wraps up everything I wanted to talk about with Spider-Man Blue. I really like this story. I think it's unique because it does deal with like personal trauma for a superhero, and not many books, even like Batman stuff. I can't think of many things that touch on this that I'm familiar with. At least I'm sure there's a lot out there for superheroes, but
well, that might just be because Batman. I feel like his niche is that he never addresses his issues, like his trust issues and stuff. It ends up just getting people killed.
yeah, I don't know. I it's something I'm curious about. So if anybody who listens has recommendations, I would look into those. But
Yeah.
Put them. Comment section. I've always wanted to do that, and I never got to do it.
Yeah.
well, there you go.
Link in the description.
So that wraps what I had to say. Is there anything else you guys want to mention before we wrap things up?
I liked it.
Yeah, this is really great. Good suggestion, Christian.
I'm glad you guys liked it. Since we're not ranking movies anymore, do we want to stamp a review score?
Yeah, let's give it some stars.
You want to stars or out of 10?
What if let's come up with our own unit of measurement.
What if we do it out of like 10, and then we just take an average of the three of us?
Okay.
So we have an official Excelsior ranking.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. I think so. Do we want to use points? It's like a 9.3.
We'll do like a
that.
20-point scale, like
Yeah.
9.9, 9.5, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So you just want to start with the middle?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll say 9.
Okay.
9.
Yeah, I'll say 9.
All right.
We'll make it
Excelsior's
easy.
official review of Spider-Man Blue, 9 out of 10.
I gave it an 8. I was just repeating what you said.
Oh, 8? Okay. So 8.5 is the
8.5.
official.
Yeah, I see it as like figure skating. Like you never give it anything a 10 because then there's, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. The official Excelsior review, 8.5 out of 10.
Cool.
But that's going to wrap it up for the Spider-Man Blue review. I hope you enjoyed that. If you haven't read Spider-Man Blue, again, highly recommend. But the two of you, do you have things to plug, things to shout out?
I I don't.
Oh, what about Twitter? You have a Twitter, right?
I do, at the P Moron.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to, my weekly retweet. I miss that. At Excelsior, I'd have like a weekly retweet, sometimes two.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's back.
Yeah.
Back in action, like Brendan Fraser.
Oh yeah.
What about you, Jack?
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at FascinatedJack.
Very nice. And you can follow me on Twitter at Chris N. Buckley. Also, if you're watching this, you're on JoyClicks already. We have a history of Marvel shows now. We have multiple shows, Pokemon show that's still going on. We got a Marvel Ultimate Alliance video I did the other day that will most likely get a couple more entries in before the game comes out. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Next week, not sure what we're reviewing yet, but we will give you some notice on our Twitter, the show's Twitter, at ExcelsiorJC. And if you maybe want to listen to this while you're browsing on your comic shop of choice, I should say, you can follow on Spotify and iTunes. Just look up Excelsior. The link's in the description, like Pat said. And
no, I'm not gonna do that.
no, because that makes just more work for me. So,
yeah.
With all of that being said, though, anybody got something? Do we just want to keep saying Excelsior to close it out now?
Yeah.
I love how it's been like 12 weeks and we still like don't know how to close out.
I'm good with Excelsior. It's like our Beyond.
Yeah. Until next time, Excelsior.
Excelsior.
Excelsior.